Today is the 15th of January and it's quite a nice day. It's not too cold, so now seems to be a good time to prune some of the fruit trees. I've got a selection here. Here's a Bramley seedling. This is a Cox's orange pippin. That's a conference pear, and that's a Victoria plum. The first thing I won't be doing is touching the Victoria plum. It's best to prune those in the summertime. Pruned now, they run a risk of suffering from silver leaf disease. What I said about not pruning plum trees in the winter also applies to any other fruit that has stones in it, for example cherries. We're looking now at the conference pear, and I want to point this out particularly because this is a spur. You get two types of bud on fruit trees. One of them are buds that are going to turn into leaves, which will develop over the years into branches, and another, often the thicker ones like these, which are going to be flower buds, from which on this pear tree one should ultimately get some pears. And it's important to understand the distinction between the two. These fruit buds tend to develop on wood that's 2 years old, and you can see the buds developing at the end. Some trees like this conference pear and like Cox's orange pippin are spur bearing. That's where you find the fruit. I'll show you another example in a minute on the Bramley seedling, which is partial tip bearing, and I'll explain what that is in due course, but it has a bearing on how you prune it. Here's some growth buds on the newer wood. You can see they are more pointed often than the fruit buds, which tend to be more bushy. I just want to take a slightly more distant shot of the conference pear for a second, just to point out the spurs. If you look along these branches, there's spurs all over the place, and this is a spur bearing variety of tree. If we look at this Bramley seedling by way of comparison, there are spurs, but nothing like as many, and this is a partial tip bearing fruit tree. And if I zoom in here on some of the branches, you'll see at the tips of the branches there are flower buds, hence the name tip bearing, which illustrates the key difference in pruning spur bearing and tip bearing or partial tip bearing fruit trees, is that you don't cut off the top of the branches, otherwise you'll be taking away the buds that would otherwise turn into fruit. Bearing in mind what I just said, it's now really a matter of deciding the shape you want the tree to be. Something that looks aesthetically nice is also quite a practical sort of thing. There are different ways of training trees. What I'm really looking for is an open centre so air can get through. In fact, I think I might get rid of that central branch. It's getting quite crowded and it's starting to fill up the middle. The other thing I'll want to avoid is branches crossing. If there is any, there doesn't seem to be any diseased wood, but that's a good thing to cut out, or important thing to cut out as well. So really all I'm going to do now is go round and take out with a sharp pair of shears, go round and take out anything that's crossing, anything that's diseased if I find it. If I'm cutting, and the other thing of course is that I don't want to have to go up ladders eventually to pick this. Even in commercial orchards now, they're all at a height that pickers can pick, so without leaving the ground. So I also will take off a few of the branches that are starting to head off into the sky where I don't want them to be. The other thing I'm looking for with the shape of the branches is branches that are going out and up, not ones that are kind of heading down towards the ground. And the other thing about cutting off branches is to pick a place where a wood bud, where a growth bud is pointing outwards, so that you're beginning to develop the outward growing shape of the tree. Well, I hope that's been helpful. Thank you very much for watching.